I wanted to provide a case study for an appropriate TALC referral and look at some of the positive interventions and outcomes that were achieved as a result of the referral. There was a young year 3 male who at school was on a part-time timetable. The part-time timetable was in place to ensure that this young man could access some education, but that actually the needs of the class were balanced with his individual needs. He was a young man who struggled with his relationships with peers, and therefore school struggled at times to manage the holistic needs of the school community. This young man was on a My Plan. He was academically able, but as I've mentioned, he struggled with his peers and was often verbally and sometimes physically aggressive towards those peers, as well as verbally and physically aggressive towards school staff. The family had a family support worker allocated. That family support worker was allocated because predominantly of the chaotic home life that this young man was growing up in. He lived with his mother and 3 siblings, and had experienced and witnessed significant domestic abuse in a previous relationship that mum had. Following conversations between the multi-agency group, the alternative provision felt that there was a role for them to go into school to carry out an observation on the behaviours that this young chap was presenting with, and then to offer a Thrive intervention within that mainstream setting, so to provide some outreach work. The advisory teaching service felt that there was a role for them in supporting the whole school staff in thinking about strategies that they could adopt to not only meet this young man's needs, but also the needs of the wider school community. The family support worker that was allocated and had been focused on home life and the chaotic nature at home was asked to consider some specific work to support mum to work towards more healthy transitions, successful transitions in the morning. It was identified that if this young man was going to come into school and be able to engage with his education, he needed to come in a more settled place. So that was something the family support worker was able to pick up. There was also consideration given to a male mentor. This was to support the young person to engage with an appropriate male role model, something that he hadn't experienced previously. So what do we see for this young man following the interventions that were put in place? We see a young man who is attending school during recreational time. He was previously being asked to go home before the lunch break. He's now able to access that recreational time and is being supported by his mentor in that recreational time. So not only is that young man getting support outside of school, but we're seeing the continuity and consistency being carried through into the school day. The young man is engaging with an extended timetable. So not only is he staying for the recreational period, he's then engaging in the first part of the afternoon and the curriculum being provided in the afternoon. The plan is to work back to full time. Mum is being supported to re-engage with school, and that's being supported by the family support worker. There was a breakdown in the relationship between mum and school, and that was something the family support worker felt that they could support mum to re-engage with. And finally, the school feel that they have an appropriate support network in place. The agencies that were sitting around the table are there for advice and support. The school no longer feel like they have no option but to keep this young person on a part-time timetable and consider the prospect that this young person may need to experience exclusion from school.